My name is Beverly Keel. I am president. Eric is our vice president right here, Eric Weisbard. First of all, please turn off cell phones if you have not done that yet. Is Dale Cockrell here? I'd like to point out Dale is the first charter member of our organization. He presented a paper earlier. I would like to note that all panels on Saturday and Sunday will be held in the Communication Music Building, and that is on St. Charles with the intersection of Calhoun. I would like to thank the folks at Loyola, particularly John Snyder, for hosting us this weekend. And I owe a 2-week vacation to Connie Atkinson, the local arrangements chair. I'd also like to thank on the local arrangements committee Sandy Hinderly of Loyola, Greg Lambusi, Lauren Lestraps, Bruce Rayburn, Jan Ramsey, Matt Sakakini, I hope I said that right, Robin Williams. Also working hard since last fall, if not earlier, is our program committee. Could I get our program chair to stand up? Dan? Dan Kavicki, Ken Habib, Devin Powers, Kwame Harrison, Eric Weisbard, Diane Pecknold. And to officially welcome us to this campus is Ed Cavett, who is provost of Loyola, but he's also a kindred spirit because he's a former dean of music and fine arts. So please help us welcome Provost Cavett.
Thank you. I'm sure you're all waiting to hear from a university administrator. You probably clearly escaped your own campuses to get away from our types, but we do truly want to welcome you to Loyola University, but more specifically to the city of New Orleans. If you may give me just a minute, I love to have the ability to talk to audiences such as yourselves who are visiting us from out of town. We want you to help us to be ambassadors, to carry back the message that truly the idea of New Orleans pre-post-Katrina, which is a very distinctive event in our lives here, but to know that truly the city is back and back much better than ever. So please carry the message. Please tell people we still don't have floodwaters in the city. You won't believe that we'll be here sometime. So thank you for being with us in that way. I do also want to say something very important to me. Obviously, I was going to say this without revealing my identity, and you maybe thought that it was really coming from a whole different perspective. But clearly here at Loyola University, the arts are central to what we do. They are central to our city of New Orleans, but they are at the heart of our institution as well. We are in a phase, as probably not many universities are nationally right now, to be actually in a building mode. I, as provost, have authorized 20 new faculty positions that we're hiring. We hired 30 new positions last year. So this institution is building, and it's building on its foundation to be located in what I believe is the finest arts city, and specifically music city, in the nation. You and I can argue. We know that indeed New Orleans was the birthplace of jazz. The argument might be, was it the birthplace of rock and roll? And I think you'll have some great arguments on that, and I'm sure that's something for all of you to discuss. I'm also honored and want to thank John Snyder, who is on our faculty, as well as our colleagues at the University of New Orleans, Tulane University right next door, who have made this event possible. I also want to say hello to one of the panelists who actually is one of our newest degree recipients. Wardell received a doctorate last year, doctorate of music from Loyola University. And so if Wardell sounds a little professorial, you'll probably understand the reason for that. It's a delight, again, for all of you to be here. Thank you for being with us at Loyola University. Enjoy your time. I understand you had your conference last year in San Diego. I am pleased that you brought your weather from San Diego to us. I'm sure it will depart as you do as well. But again, thanks for being here. Have a great time in our art city. Enjoy the French Quarter Festival if you don't have a chance this weekend as well. Again, thank you. Beverly, thank you so much.
All right, now it's time for our special event entitled Preserving and Presenting the Music of New Orleans, which is a co-production by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum and the Ponderosa Stomp. So please welcome to the stage our moderator, Jason Hanley of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum.
Hello, everyone. Hope you all had a good lunch, and welcome to the ASPM US special event session sponsored by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the Ponderosa Stomp. I'm Jason Hanley, the Director of Education at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and it's a real pleasure to stand here today and introduce the panel about music from New Orleans. We'll hear from two of the musicians who have famously called this city home. Many of us probably think of the ASPM US meetings each year as an excellent opportunity to share our research and network with fellow academics. But ASPM's always attempted to cast its net for a wider group of participants. The bylaws of ASPM US state, quote, that it was created to provide an interdisciplinary and interprofessional organization for the promotion of the study of popular music and establish connections between the scholarly community, those in the music profession, and those who write about popular music. Various musical styles rise and fall, and some begin to forever disappear from the world of live music performance, only to remain on an old LP in someone's basement somewhere, probably mine. As the history of jazz, rhythm and blues, gospel, soul, and rock and roll grows longer, we've also witnessed many projects designed to invigorate and preserve these musics. These projects look to engage the history of the music as a living culture, providing a stage for artists to tell their story and keep that music alive. At the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum, we do this every day through our exhibits that represent the multifaceted history of rock and roll. But within the education department, we're tasked with making that history come alive to students of all ages. From a first grader who's hearing the music of Fats Domino or Little Richard for the very first time, to older audience members who come in and often tell us that they know the music better than we do, and sometimes they're probably right. We teach programs and classes, but we also offer a full range of programs that bring musicians to the museum and have them talk about their history and their music in front of a live audience. These events are taped so that they can be collected as part of the museum's library and archive, which will open this fall in Cleveland on the campus of Cuyahoga Community College. And thank you to Loyola too today for filming this event, which will be included in those archives. For the past several years, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has had the good fortune to be able to work with the Ponderosa Stomp right here in New Orleans. The Ponderosa Stomp Foundation is a not-for-profit educational organization dedicated to celebrating the legacy, revitalizing the careers, and preserving the history of American music and musicians. Since its inception in 2001, the Stomp has put on over 70 shows, employing more than 500 musical legends and giving a forgotten generation of musicians a platform to perform and re-educate the public about their pioneering cultural contributions. We have with us today one of the founders of the Stomp, Ira Padnos, better known to those of us in the know as Dr. Ike, who will tell us about the activities of the Stomp, which includes concerts and panels similar to the one we're having here today. Our panelists today also recognize the importance of telling the story of this music. Harold Batiste's All for One Foundation is dedicated to recognizing, perpetuating, and documenting the heritage of New Orleans music and the people who make it. And Wardell Krizarg is going to tell us today about what it was like to work as a producer and arranger for people like Fats Domino and Professor Longhair. So today, all of us are part of this mission. As scholars, the stories we uncover and tell are part of it. From the international and global stories of popular music, to the history and sounds of rhythm and blues and rock and roll, to the local stories of musicians, producers, songwriters, session players, engineers, label owners, and arrangers. Everyone who makes the music something that we all love and cherish, and something that is not only worth remembering, but keeping alive. So let's get started, and I'll introduce Dr. Lauren Anke, the Vice President of Education at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Museum, who will officially introduce us to our panelists today.
I'll just be quick here. Unfortunately, I'm the one to announce that Manny Fresh will not be able to be here today. There was a problem with his flight, and he even tried to drive here, and it just couldn't happen. So unfortunately, Manny won't be joining us today. Just a couple of quick things, a follow-up to Jason's comment about the Rock Hall's Library and Archives. It's a 22,000 square feet building. It's built, there are people working in it, but it's not yet open to the public. Will be open, we hope, in November. And we really want this to be the preeminent research center for rock and roll. Andy Leach, who came to us from the Center for Black Music Research in Chicago, is our director. And we really hope to create this as a kind of center for the community of popular music scholars out there. So we hope to see you all in Cleveland in the very near future to do your work, and it's really going to expand what we can do at the university level, so stay tuned to our website and various announcements about all that. It's really an honor to share the stage with these gentlemen. As Jason mentioned, the Rock Hall has worked with Ponderosa Stomp for a number of years. I would just want to thank Dr. Ike for making things today happen, and also Allison Fensterstock, who's out there. We're really... And Dr. Ike has generously given us the film of the last several Ponderosa Stomps to have in our library and archives, so that'll be kind of key to our initiative there. We could spend the next couple of hours just listing the really important records that Harold and Wardell have been part of throughout the history of music as songwriters, producers, arrangers, the things they've been responsible for as teachers. It's really stunning. If we think about Prince Lala's She Put the Hurt on Me, or Lee Dorsey's Ya Ya, or Barbara George's I Know, or I was recently listening a lot to Harold's recordings in the 50s of the jazz quintet, the original jazz quintet, just fantastic stuff. Wardell's music throughout his whole career, Creole Mass, which ended up on my stereo at Easter time, just a really extensive history that we hope to go deep on here. And we're going to kick off with just a short video about Ponderosa Stomp. I should mention that Harold's Unfinished Business, The Memories of a New Orleans Music Man by Harold Batiste, is coming out this June. There's flyers around. It looks fantastic. Very, very exciting.
In 1959, I built my first band called the Jive 5. 2 guitars, we didn't have no bass player in them time, you know, 4-string bass, drummer and a vocalist. And we played like that, and then in 1960, we built the Top Cats, 15-piece group. Monkey and the Sax Specialist.
I came with Charlie Booth to Houston, which, you know, was connected with UMO. And we went in, we did one take, cost us $500. And they was treated right.
If you practice my method just as hard as you can, you're gonna get a reputation.
You know, I do personally like the Beatles, but I don't like their music. They knocked me out of #1 for about 5 weeks in a row. I sat right under their butt, though.
You know, back then, instrumentals was a big thing. If you had a good instrumental like honky tonk, you know, honky tonk lasted forever, man. And if you had a good instrumental, you could make it. So I said, I'm gonna write me. I just got to playing, you know, I said, hey.
Here, you were asking about Roy Head. Let's put these away so I can find them later.
Well, Dr. Ike, how it started, he called me to play his wedding.
Dr. Ike, I met him one night, I was playing with Dopsy at the Maple Leaf.
I remember getting a call from Ira, and he introduced himself to me. And he said, how would you like to come to New Orleans and do the Ponderosa Stomp?
And he came by and asked me if he got some guys together, would I go and play?
And I said, I'll consider it. I may be busy. I looked at my calendar, there ain't shit on it. No, there was stuff everywhere.
That's how it got started. Then, you know, he started this Ponderosa Stomp.
The biggest export America's had over the 50 years of American culture has been rock and roll. There's kind of this hidden secret history or patchwork that you don't know. You know the stars, but you don't know really how it developed, you know, who's behind it or what. I mean, the sidemen, the people that influenced everybody else, the one-hit wonder that actually had long careers, but you only knew about one song. You know, these are people that fall through the cracks, that played key contributions, but you just never got their due. So the idea for the Ponderosa Stomp was initially to get these people back out, to show people that they exist, and to kind of show how it all evolved.
What Dr. Aura is doing, he bringing some old musicians from, you know, who had never been heard of, like other words, like they just fade away. I mean, thank God I'm still here. I haven't faded away yet.
I wanna fly.
You want to try to capture their stories, give them a chance to be seen, and try to preserve the history of a lot of these musicians. Probably in 10 or 15 years, last of the blues, rockabilly, New Orleans rhythm and blues, funk musicians, a lot of these guys are all going to be gone. And once that's gone, that's a lot of the foundation of, you know, rock and roll, the guys that really created the 78s and 45s.
Educate, not just about music, just about life itself, you know what I mean?
During the Stomp, I got to meet all the legends. I mean, the real legends of R&B music.
The Stomp is for real, man.
The Ponderosa Stomp Foundation is a nonprofit organization that encompasses not only the Stomp, which is the two-day concert, annual concert, but also the music conference, which happens to coincide with the concert. We do oral histories with artists throughout the year that we archive at the Ogden Museum of Southern Art, the Louisiana State Museum. We have school programs where we bring artists into classrooms to expose them to some of the older generation of music.
I think Ira's original aim, Ira's aim from the start, was essentially to cross the category. So you'll have a rockabilly guitarist playing with a blues singer. You'll have a Sleepy LaBeef playing with a Lazy Lester. You'll have a Scotty Moore playing with some blues man.
When somebody comes to the concert in New Orleans, I think that they'll walk in and be completely blown away by the quantity and the caliber of music.
I mean, there's nothing else like it. 10 hours of music just nonstop berating you, where it's just showing you rock and roll stripped to its core, to the roots of what the fun is.
Now, as I see it, the aim of the Stomp is to create a total environment. It's an environment which is looking to encourage the spontaneous eruption of music.
People come to the Ponderosa Stomp and they have a great time. They just think it's a concert music conference. They actually don't understand that it's actually a foundation is putting it on. While the Ponderosa Stomp and its programming have grown exponentially, the revenue stream is just drip, 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 drip. It gets harder and harder as this thing expands to do this, and I'm not sure I can keep sustaining the efforts to do this.
One of the big challenges, because we're a nonprofit, is funding. It's important for people to recognize the value of these individuals' contributions to American music.
Some of these artists were doing different things. I mean, if you're known as a raw blues guitar player, what are you doing playing B.B. King songs? You know, the object was, hey, why don't we get you doing what you were famous for?
I remember telling Ira, what am I supposed to do? He said, do Roy Head. Do Roy Head. Oh, that's good. That's great. Do Roy Head. Wonderful.
To be truthful about it, after I recorded this stuff, I kind of got away from my music. Man, to be truthful, I don't ever play my music on a gig, man. I don't. I just do all or nothing but cover songs, you know.
I mean, he wasn't even doing it. I had to call him up and said, Classy, you know this song? Well, I don't know, Ira. And I said, can you learn it?
He loves the old music. He wants you to play crap you cut in the garage. You don't even remember cutting.
Believe it or not, Ira know more about classic blues than I know about myself.
Up to now, is really, be honest, is when I met Doc, I've been doing a lot of things on my own, not with nobody else. Playing the stuff I want to play, how I want to play it, you know. And I'm still going that way. I'm going to be going that way till the end.
You know, it's just sometimes, you know, I think they just forget what they do and their feats of accomplishments, and it's great to be able to get some of these guys back into what they're known for, and then they realize themselves what they really did historically.
You don't miss your water.
Ira, you want to get us started here?
Yeah, let's get to what we really came here for. We've got some really distinguished people right next to me, and Wardell and Harold. This is where the essential part of where New Orleans starts. And if you look in New Orleans, one of the things that helps define New Orleans music in that it's the producer and arranger behind it. And basically, we're going to start and talk about today how New Orleans influenced their work and how their effect on various things. So let's get started and ask Harold, what you grew up in Central City, and what sort of effect did growing up in Central City have on you in terms of your music?
Oh, well, I guess the whole area, the neighborhood influenced me because there was always some music around. You know, if it was weekends and there was a parade or something, and you know, I mean, from the dinner table you could hear a bass drum coming down the street, and you wanted to get up, go see what's happening outside, even as a little child. So all of that began to influence me. Then, personally, when I was about 8 years old, I got in the church choir, the junior choir. That had a great effect on me because I remember one Christmas they had to do a little Christmas play, and I got to sing "We Three Kings Are from Orient Are," and the results of that really overwhelmed me because all them old ladies start hugging me and every stuff like, "Oh, you sure can sing," and you know, that stuff like that. And I was trying to get out of there. But that helped influence me though, because I didn't know people responded like that, and you know, so things like that.
But you were also telling me too that you grew up about a block away from a few Second and Dryads, which was a big Mardi Gras Indian.
Yeah, right around the corner, right on. I thought it was Dryad Street on Second.
Yeah.
Because I was raised on Second and Saratoga, just 2 blocks from there. So I would see all of those things as a child. Before I was 10 years old, I saw all of those things. Mardi Gras Indians and social and pleasure clubs that had little parades for every excuse they could find. Had a little parade and had a little band playing and something like that. So I would see all of those things. And for me further, whenever the radio, like middays, they had a little program called Midday Serenade. And whenever that radio program would come on, I would get 2 forks out of the kitchen and be beating on my mama's furniture, playing drums on the furniture. Had fork marks all over the place. But that's the way that's the way I responded to the music. That kind of stuff. Yeah.
And Wardell, you grew up downtown in what's traditionally referred to as the Creole area of the city, the 7th Ward. What was your first exposure to the influence of the neighborhood on you?
That's the 1, 2. Excuse me, that's a habit. When I was young, many years ago, we always had a family band around us, you know. And if there wasn't family bands, it was family friends that always came and jam on Sunday afternoons. And during the Mardi Gras season, well, the Indians would always come out and parade before they go on Canal Street or New Orleans Street and all of that, Orleans Avenue. They always start from our neighborhood. So I was really influenced by that with the drum beat and all of that when I was coming up. I have a brother that played trumpet. I had a brother that plays guitar. My father played banjo and guitar. My mother sang. I had uncles that played saxophones, and pianos and all of that. So I really came up in a musical surrounding when I grew up.
Wardell, do you think that having so much different instruments around you also kind of led to your ability to arrange? Jason and I saw just a random brass band last night, and we were talking about the complexity of the arrangements, even when you see young bands.
uh, when I came up, I always had the sense of reading music, you know, but I never had anyone to tell me how that was done until I grew up I went to high school, and a fellow named Clyde Cuss Sr. Was my instructor at one of the high schools there. And we used to have a study period where he'd tell us to study, and he'd be behind the desk writing music. And I always sneak around him and find out what he's doing and ask him questions. And he said, well, I'm writing, I'm arranging. And I never knew, even when I was in high school, what arranging was. You know what I mean? So he was a very influence on me on doing that. And I got to the point that when I was in high school, I did a few things like Harry James' Backbeat Boogie. And we used to play it at high school, and it's just a little simple thing, you know. But it gave me an opportunity to say, well, this is what arranging is about. And I took up from there on.
Harold, how did you originally get into arranging?
Oh, well, it was more complicated than that. It was because when I went to high school, first of all, my mother didn't want me to be a musician at all. She wanted me to be something decent. Can't be no musician. Anyway, when I went to high school, she wanted me to go to Gilbert Academy. I didn't want to go to Gilbert Academy either. I wanted to go to Booker T. Washington because they had just built that school and it was new. And all the boys that I knew from the Magnolia Project was going to Booker T. But my mother wanted me to go to Gilbert. So I went to Gilbert. But the band director, my daddy had got me a pawn shop clarinet. My last year in grammar school, he got me a shop, Barnes system clarinet out of the pawn shop, and showed me how to get a sound out of it and how to put my fingers on it. Anyway, when I got to high school, I couldn't read at all. I couldn't play too good either, but I couldn't read at all. So I was playing third clarinet. I made the band, but I was playing third clarinet back with the girls. So that's what started me to want to try to write music. See, because I got to try to let this band director, Mr. Davis, you know, recognize me some kind of way. And there was a record that was popular by Eddie Cleanhead Benson, Boogie, what was it, Homemade Boogie, and on the other side was Kidney Stew. So I decided to see if I could write what they was playing. So I listened to that record over and over and over until I figured out how to count to it and put the notes down on a piece of paper. And then I brought it to my band director to see if, you know, it was all right. And so he did better than that. He went and got two cats from the first clarinet player who could play saxophone too, and had them to play it. And when they played it, it sounded just like the record. So he said, boy, you could be an arranger. Same like you said. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know, arranger? What is that, arrange? What, the chairs? I don't know what he's talking about. You could be a ranger. He said, well, boy, this is what you should. You go down to Warlines. That was the music store here, the major music store at the time. Go down and get a Glenn Miller book on arranging. And that's what I did. But that book confused me. That book confused me, so I started writing by ear then. And so that's, after about 2 or 3 years, I began to know how to, you know, copy people's solo off the record and all that stuff like that. So I knew how to do that. That's what morphed into being an arranger.
Now, Wardell, after you met Clyde Kerr Sr. and you started getting the idea of how to start arranging, what led you to get more into it and get better at your craft?
Well, in bands, they have what we call stock arrangements, And we used to buy the stock arrangements, and I would learn how to transpose the parts and get ideas from that on how to voice different instruments and things of that nature. So that was a very important step in my career to do it that way, you know, to analyze what was going on. And then during the years, you can always do the music the same way, but you always add something new that what I would call a signature to your writing. You can always tell, I know I can anyway, like if Harold would do a song, I can tell off the bat that it's Harold Batiste, because it's a certain way that he would voice something that would give me the inspiration, man, that sounds so good. And I'm gonna analyze that, you know, do it, steal a little part here and a little part there, and then do it my way after and all of that. That's how I got to do it, by buying stock arrangements and analyzing what was done on instrumentation that way.
Now you're arranging, Wardell. Also, when you got drafted into the Army, your ability to arrange also kind of was proved to be very helpful for you in terms of assignments, didn't it?
Oh, well, yeah, man. Got me, it saved my life in a lot of ways, getting into the service, and it was some experience too. But what happened is that I was the only one that was doing arranging at the time, and it gave me time to do more arranging than then, you know. Then that's when I got into Dizzy Gillespie and all of that. And that was my mainstay right there, all that jazz that Dizzy was doing, and I copied a lot of his records that he did, and the solos. I had a little ability to do it, but I wasn't no Dizzy Gillespie. You better believe that. But that's what the Army did for me to further my education as far as writing is concerned. And the people in the Army really recognized that, and I got promotion from that point of view. You know. And I can tell you stories like when the Korean War started, we was playing on stage, the band was, and the war started then, and they stopped the music from playing, and they told us about the war have started, and so they got us off stage. We went to the barracks, unloaded they had barrels and barrels of rifles in a barrel with grease, and we had to take it out of that. The next morning after that, they had us on the truck to go to Korea. At that time, now remember, I'm in Japan now. So they put me on the truck to go to Korea. And from the truck, as we was rolling, the warrant officer in my band stopped the truck, and with orders that he got, replaced me, took me off the truck and put someone else in my place. And I found out weeks later that the fella that they put in my place, when he got to Korea, he would just say that he was killed in the battle. A very nice friend of mine. So I promised that I would do a mass in respect for my life being saved because of the incident. So that's when I did my Creole mass. But that's getting into another thing there. But that's what happened with me in the service.
Now, Harold, while you were starting to develop as a arranger, you also at one point was living across the street from the Dewdrop Inn, the famous New Orleans night spot. What sort of influence did that have on you?
Oh, that was great. Living in the Magnolia Project, and my porch was right across from the Dewdrop. And my first real job was at Uncle Dan's restaurant, which was also right across the street from my house. I was about 13, 14 years old, something like that. Making $12 a week, 6 days a week, $12. Anyway, but the Dewdrop was just fascinating. I could sit on my porch and I could see all kind of, people that I knew was big stars, Joe Turner and Ray Charles, and all of them came to the Dewdrop. And they lived there because they had a hotel there and a barber shop, which was my barber shop. And they had everything. I mean, Frank Pena was way ahead of his time, man. He was the cat that lived in the project, same project with me, came from the country. He was a barber himself. And he developed that whole thing into a complex of a barber shop, nightclub, and a hotel, and a restaurant. So I spent a lot of time on my porch listening to Dave Bartholomew. He used to rehearse his band at the Dewdrop. He had a little radio show or something. So I got to hear all of that when I was early teenager.
Getting right, Harold, is jazz and R&B are sort of kind of living side by side there, right? In
Well,
that period,
see, I never did segregate music like that. I never did, in all, even into my adulthood, I had real apprehension about all of the different names they were given to music, because it separates people from hearing the music. Because even as I got older and I was teaching in school, I began to realize that young people didn't know the difference between all of those things. It was just music, but when you get to put a name on the music, then some people think they don't like it, but they haven't really heard it. Or just jazz, oh, I don't like jazz. I want rock and roll. But they ain't never listened to jazz. You're not really pay. And see, unfortunately, we live in a society that's money oriented. And once the people who try to make money learn how to do it, that's what becomes popular. You understand? I mean, that's my understanding. It might not be right. But that's what becomes, what's become popular. That's what happened back when I was back in the late 50s or late 60s something. That's when payola became an issue, because the capitalists were learning out that, hey, if you pay this cat $50, he'll play your record every hour. Or if I pay him $100, he'll play it every half hour. And he would play it every half hour, and y'all would like it. Oh man, that's what's happening. Before you know it, that's a hit record, and people think that that's what it is, whatever they call it. Anyway, I don't get me to preaching.
Well, let's talk a little bit. Here you are. You're hanging out on your door. Across the street from the Dewdrop Inn. You're digging on Dave Bartholomew. And then you wind up in Los Angeles playing jazz with Ornette Coleman. How did that come about?
Well, I started playing. I was trying to play what they call jazz before I went to Los Angeles. But Ornette happened to get stranded down here. Ornette was out playing with a rhythm and blues band.
It was Clarence Band. Clarence told me that some girl one time was staring at him, and her boyfriend got pissed off that he went broke Ornette's saxophone on a gig.
Well, that's how Ornette got stranded down here. And he left Ornette down here. And Ornette, he stayed here about 2 or 3 years with a family called the Lasties, with Melvin Lasty and several other people, his family. So Ornette got to know several musicians around New Orleans, and he got bent on a drummer named Edward Blackwell. He really liked Edward Blackwell's playing. So when Ornette finally got away from here, went back to his hometown, then wound up himself in Los Angeles, he sent a bus ticket to Blackwell to come out there and join him in Los Angeles. And it just happened that I had trouble with the school board. I was teaching school by then. I had finished college and I was teaching school. And I had trouble with the school board here in New Orleans. Reason I had trouble, I'll mention it, because I was teaching at a school called McDonald number 6, uptown. And the supervisor came by my school one day and saw me teaching about reading music. And he stood out in the hall and he watched me do that. Then he called me out in the hall and told me, look, you're spending too much time teaching them how to read. The parents want to just hear them play some songs. Why don't you teach them some songs? And he didn't understand. I'm going to tell you some other stuff. Y'all might be getting mad with me, but he didn't know that I had been listening to a cat around the dewdrop named Jimmy X. You know what the X means? Anybody know what that person with that kind of name? No, y'all don't know. Y'all are another generation from me. He was a black Muslim. That's right. Somebody said it. Yeah, he was a Muslim. He was under Elijah Muhammad then, and he was always talking around there about, just everything that Elijah Muhammad talked. But part of his speech was he asked me personally, you ever look a white man dead in a white devil dead in the eye? That's the way he put it. Now, when this cat came to my school and told me about not teaching my children how to read music, I asked him, that was the time I tested it, because I realized I had never done that. I had never looked at a white man dead in the eye. And he was a white man. And I looked him dead in the eye and I saw him back off. But 3 days later, I got a letter from the school board that I had to come down to the school board office. So after that meeting at the school board, that's when I realized I can't handle this. If that's the way it is, I couldn't handle it. So they offered me an option that I could, comply with the supervisor guy, or I could tender my resignation. Well, that settled it for me. And how that led to me going out to Los Angeles was that after that, I didn't have no job. I had no job. And so I went out by Ellis Marcellus' house, and Edward Blackwell was out there, but Edward Blackwell had spent the money for the bus ticket. And I said, well, shit, I ain't got no job. But I got a car. And so I said, hey, man, I might as well drive out there, and I can take you. You ain't got no bus ticket. So me and him and Ellis just drove out to California. Didn't know what we was gonna do, but Arnett was supposed to have a gig with Arnett. Blackwell was supposed to have a gig with. So me and Ellis didn't know what we was gonna do, but I knew I had to do something because I had a wife and child by that. Okay, that's it. I got out there.
So Wardell, you get out of the Army and you started arranging, and then you wind up your first real big studio project turned out to be the New Orleans House Party with Dave Bartholomew and his band. Can you talk a little bit about how that came about?
Dave, I met Dave, but I got to disagree with two things. First, what Harold was saying about when he went to California and did something with Ornette Coleman, I think you said, and that he said he wasn't much into jazz. Well, I got to disagree with you because Harold had a reputation in New Orleans for playing jazz. So don't let him fool you with that. Yes, you did. Yes,
I said I wasn't into jazz. I said I wasn't into jazz.
No, you said.
I didn't say I was into jazz.
But you said you wasn't as popular. But you was. But you was.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's what I disagree with. You wasn't.
Y'all know I was popular.
Because when I was young and I heard about you, man, I had to say that, man.
That's what I was trying to. I was trying to play jazz, but I didn't think I was playing it.
Oh, well, that's, I'm still disagreeing with you. You was.
Well, good. I'm glad you think so. Thank
I know. Well, now what was the question?
What was it like when the first time you know, how did you get into playing, doing the arrangements for Dave Bartholomew's band, and how that?
Okay, I met Dave. It was after I'd done what you would call this. I did something with Robert Parker called barefooting, and it was getting to be very popular, and Dave was into that field. But I organized a band called the Royal Dukes of Rhythm, and we played jazz and rock and roll and whatever else, you know, for Social and Pleasure Club. So he heard the band and he asked me to come up, he wanted to see me. Well, I heard the name of Dave Bartholomew, and I thought he was a white man because he was so popular, you know, that what he'd done with Thrash Domino, I never thought about him being black. So when I did meet him, I found out he wasn't white. So he said, "Man, I want to see you. Let's get together. Maybe you can do something with me." I did a few things with him, and then we got into this into the record house party, which was jazz. And then no, I think before that, I did something with him with Booker Washington. What was that? Booker Washington. No, not Booker T.
James Booker?
Dan Booker, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Jan Booker, we did something with him, and he did all the Fats Domino tunes in the jazz style, or jazz rhythm and blues, if you want to call it that. And then Dave came up with the idea of doing some original stuff on his album. So I did some things, Mr. Clyde Carr did some things. There's a fella named Pickett that did some arrangement. Man, he was a great boy. He was real nice, you know. Piano player, and both of his sons was playing trumpet. One of his sons lived in California, one died. I mean, he lived in overseas somewhere, Wendell, I believe. And that's how I got to meet Dave, and we did the house party thing. And one of the things that was renowned off of the album was a tune I wrote for Warren Bell, and I was in the service with him, and he was a saxophonist. But in the service, I met him playing clarinet and saxophone. But then anyway, Dave got him in the band. They did some things, and I did this thing called Concerto for Alto. And it turned out to be a signature thing for Warren and I, as far as the jazz scene was concerned, because I was noted most for what you would call rhythm and blues and all of that. But that's how I met Dave.
Why don't we play an example or two of Wardell's some of the arrangements Wardell did? Do we have barefooting?
I never heard in that tempo. You don't remember that one? A lot of space.
I have just a few clips of some of the stuff that Wardell's responsible for.
Stuff as well. Jobs to find it.
Everybody get on your feet. You make me nervous when you're in your seat. Take off your shoes and pat your feet. We doing a dance that can't be beat. We barefooting.
And in addition to this one, Wardell also did a song working with the Dixie Cups.
Gee, I really love you.
And Wardell also did the arrangements for Mr. Big Stuff.
The big stuff. Who do you think you are? Mr. Big Stuff.
And he also did, from the same session, I believe, Groove Me. Do we have that with us?
Yeah, I don't think I have that.
Okay, those are some examples of Wardell's work. And if you notice, Wardell, you were always talking about how you put your signature on arrangement, but one thing I notice about you, there's never, in your arrangements, you arrange for the song. There's never a signature style. Like some arrangers, you can automatically tell it's theirs, but you arrange for the song rather than putting in flourishes to let people know it's you. It's like if it's there, it's hidden, but you always have some, there's always a parade beat influence in that. What do you consider to be your signature?
That's like asking a boxer how you get to knock out people. You just got that punch to do it. I don't know. Yeah, yeah. Man. Well, how do you knock a person out? Well, she come with a short punch and all that. I mean, I saw a dude came with a punch cut from the floor and but knock him out. So I can't answer that. All I know is that no matter if you can't hide, it's just like your signature. You write your signature on the check, they know it's you. Like right now, if I write a check out and I sign my name to it, I know I can't write straight. So if I write from left to right, then by the time I start at the top, it's on an angle coming to the bottom. But it still it's my signature, and that part worries me about it. But it's just something about an arranger that when you hear how he writes, the way he writes and all of that, that makes that. That's the only way I can explain that. It's just the way he voices things in a way, not only the way he voices, the way he does it behind a song is the signature, because I don't, very seldom I overcrowd an artist. It's just a background stuff, but it's the signature that I have before he starts singing. I might write the instrumental part, and then it's that way too. But behind vocalists, I don't put too much music. I hear some hits here and there, and all that kind of jazz. But whatever I write, that's it. Now, how that come about, it's over the years, I guess. You just develop that. It's a development.
One thing is, which is interesting, is you created some of the songs you arranged, Mr. Big Stuff, Go in the Chapel, and especially Groove Me, are still being used in commercials. And, and here you're hearing your music every day on the radio or TV, but unfortunately, the monetary process doesn't catch up with the popularity of the song with you. Has that been, and on the one hand, you're probably happy how do you feel about your arrangements being out there, but you don't really feel the monetary effect of that?
Bad.
Simple as that.
It's right. You hear all that playing, and you don't get paid for arrangement. Maybe there's some kind of way you do, but I don't. It's there. The artist is making money off it. The producer does too.
And the publisher.
Yeah, and publishing all of that. But an arranger, nope. You get paid what you do, unless you sign a contract stating that you want to override on everything that will sell. See, which I never knew in the business that I can do something like that. But you're right. It's kind of yeah. Because you got artists walking out there with money in their pocket and you saying, man, I need $3. Shoot, you're going to $3 yourself to debt. But anyway, they deserve it. They was the artists and things like that. But I think everyone, even the musicians that's on the set, should receive some from it too, you know.
Why don't we hear a couple things that Harold did? We're going to start first with Harold playing with the American Jazz Quintet. Everybody gets to hear me fumble through the iPod.
Nevermore, take one.
You play with the quintet, piano, or saxophone?
Something more in the popular vein. Can we hear a little bit of You Send Me by Sam Cooke, who Harold did the arrangement for?
Darling, you send me. I know you send me. Darling, you send me. Honest you do, honest you do, honest you do.
And then we'll hear a little bit of what was AFO Records' biggest hit, I Know by Barbara George. And then lastly, we're going to hear a little bit of Walk on Gilded Splinters by Dr. John. Harold was the producer on this.
Some people think they jive me, but I know they must be crazy. Don't see their misfortune if they just too lazy. Je suis le grand zombie, my yellow belt of choice on. Ain't afraid of no tongue.
So those are just a few of the varied productions that Harold Batiste has done. One of the things that Harold figured out, he came back in New Orleans after playing with Ornette Coleman and was the A&R man for Specialty Records, and then he formed with a bunch of the studio musicians in New Orleans, AFO Records, which was years ahead of its time in terms of both its business and in terms of its business model, and it influenced countless others years later. So I'd like for Harold to talk a little bit about that, if he would.
Well, yeah. Well, that was part of my. Still a part of me that Jimmy X had left in my mind. If you all remember what I said about Jimmy X, he's the one who got me fired from the school board. But I still remember that he was talking about Elijah Muhammad, talking about our people not owning anything that could make us wealthy. And I said, because he would give examples, of everything that ethnic groups, the Jews had this and Italians had that, and everybody had something. But he said, what do black people own? What kind of industry do they own that they could make, they can have their own food and their own stuff? So in my mind, I say, well, look like we ought to have music. That's what I thought. I said, man, because we make a music that everybody likes, but nobody black owned the record company. all the artists around here were recorded by cats, white-owned record labels. So that's what made me decide to try to start a record company. That's why it's called AFO, All for One. So we just, I got a group of guys, Red Tyler and Chuck Beatty and Melvin Lansky, enough guys, you know, to start a record label and shit. And Melvin Lansky was my partner because he was a union man. He was the cat that goes into the studio to see that they do it, you know, right with the legal contracts and all that stuff. So I said, made him a part of the company. And so we, you know, that's what made us start a record label. I remember one incident that was, because I had black business cards. Y'all gonna say I'm a racist, but I am a racist. I'm black, so I'm racist. But ain't nothing wrong, that's just a word. But I had black business cards, and when I went down on Barone Street to see who was gonna be the distributor for our record label, there was a cat named Henry Hildebrand, who and all the distributors were on Barone Street. And when Henry was standing up there looking at, he said, man, if y'all hear a hit record, y'all gonna get all of the artists. I had never even thought about that, but that's what he was thinking, that if we start a record label, if we have a hit record, everybody gonna, because all of them was living off of black artists, you know, Eddie Bull and all of them was on their labels. So anyway, that's what, you know, that's how we started a record label. And the first record we did was just that I Know That You Heard just now. Well, the first record that we released was by Prince Lala, which was called She Put the Hurt on Me. And it was really a proud moment to hear that record on the radio. When I first heard that on the radio, and they played it on I guess it was called WMRY, and I don't know if it was station, but I know they had Bob Hudson and all them cats on the record. And this jockey really helped us a lot. So the first record was a regional hit. And the second record that we released was Barbara George's record, and it went gold. It went up to #3 in the nation. So that was a real surprise for a record label to start out, you know, with the people in City Hall didn't even know what kind of license I had to have. They thought I wanted to have a record shop. They didn't know what I was talking about. I said, I'm gonna have a record company. Anyway, but that's the way that got started.
We should talk a little bit about New Orleans has many great characters and people that you've done session with, both of you. Wardell, what was it like to deal with a Professor Longhair session in the studio?
Wow. Well, you started off a tough one there. Professor Longhair, well, he had a name before I even knew who he was, you know, because there's something about him, man, that everybody, he influenced, I think, all of the piano players after him. He influenced everyone because everyone got the same little licks that he does. You know what I mean? But I met him through Dave, but no, it wasn't Dave. I think the record owner of the One Stop Record Shop. Yeah, I think that's right, Asanto. Yeah, Joe Asanto. And we did this thing with Fest. We went to the studio. We was at Cosmo Studio, and I mean, man, you talking about musicians being in a sardine can, it was that. Because we used a huge band, and it was cut live, you know. But the thing about that record is that he didn't sing a lick on there. It was Earl King that sang the song, and also Earl King that whistled it. And the only thing that Fest did was play the piano, which was the most important thing anyway. He played the piano on it. We had to tie his hand behind his back so it wouldn't interfere with the arrangement and things like that, because the arrangement, you know, is one of them things that it fitted the song, but it was overwhelming. And he just couldn't sing with it, and he couldn't whistle with it, and he couldn't play the piano left-handed or right-handed. One of the two was tied to his back. And another thing about Fest was this, that whenever he played, you always can tell where he played at, because the piano leg would be like in splinters, because that's where he keeps his tempo, is with his, you know, boy, I would hate to, if he'd have been mad at me for him to kick me. If he can hit a piano and splinter, you can imagine what else he can splinter. So bones go with it. But that's how I met Fest to do that. And I think, not Earl King, it was, I think, was that the song that I think we did with the drummer? He hit the piano, he hit the drum so hard, he was bleeding from the forefinger and the thumb. In between that section there, he was bleeding. And he had to tie him up with that so he continued to play. And I had a brother that my oldest brother played. He made an instrument. Well, he made he got a broomstick and nailed a whole lot of Coca-Cola bottles, caps to it. And that's what he was shaking. When you hear that shaking, and it's not a tambourine, it's broomsticks with Coke caps on it. And that's how that came about.
Can I ask both of you guys, we've talked a lot about you working, of course, with New Orleans musicians, but then a lot of outside musicians would come to town to work, especially maybe in the later years. Did that change the kind of studio dynamic when you started working with musicians not raised here?
If you ask me, I never did anything with musicians outside of New Orleans. I went out of town and worked with them, but never in New Orleans. Like some of the things I did with Malaco Records was from the musicians over there. And it was all country musicians that played on that. And when we did the Mr. Big Stuff and Groove Me, we started with Mr. Big Stuff, to be honest with you, and man, they look at each other and say, "What the heck is that man doing?" Because the way it started, it never was dum dum, dum 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 dum. You know, they never came across anything like that before. You know, and it took a little while to pound it in their head, but they was good musicians and they got it. You know, so. But other than New Orleans, I never did any session with anyone from New York, except some artists that came and we did some stuff with them, vocal-wise.
Harold, you mentioned you worked, one of the more colorful people you worked with, of course, was Prince Lawa. What was it like to work with Prince Lawa?
Oh, yeah, that just happened right in the studio, because he wasn't supposed to even sing that day. Because he was on the station. He came with Jesse Hill was Melvin Lasse's uncle. And he brought Barbara, and Prince Lala came there to accompany her. And Barbara was having problems getting the rhythm to, she put the word on me. So Prince sang it to her so she could get it. But when we heard Prince Lala sing, we said, well, we ought to record this cat, because he sounded so good, and he had it. So we split the session between Prince Lala and Barbara. So we did both of those acts that one same day.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, how does it, here you are, you're cutting records at Cosmo Studio, which is pretty much a very primitive place.
Yeah.
And then the next thing you know, you're out in L.A., and you're working at Gold Star Studio with Phil Spector. Can you talk a little bit about what a Spector session was like?
Oh Lord, that was worse than anywhere else. Oh man! But he was a brilliant man, but he was sort of crazy. He was really, because first of all, he had a studio full of people. The band was so big. He had 3 or 4 rhythm sections in it, and they had 3 pianos. And that's how I got into it, was that Sonny was working for him. Sonny was like his gopher. He'd go get his coffee and all that stuff. And that's where Sonny met Cher. That's where he met her. And when he found out Cher was a little groupie that wanted to learn how to be a singer, he came down to me and asked me would I help him do something, you know, in the studio. But and he started getting me sessions on for, you know, to play piano. Well, Phil Spector, I was the third piano player. He had 3 pianos. And Phil said, "You're going to be the free man. You don't have to read none of that music. You just play whatever you think found right."
Really?
Yeah. He just let me play anything.
Let me ask you something, Harold, not to cut you off, man. Is it true, now I heard this from someone from New York, that he used to go in the studio and he always threatened people, he always had a gun waving at people and all that kind of was that true?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I didn't know that until, you know, late after I had been doing a few things with him, and we was not at Gold Star then. We went over to A&M, and he pulled out a gun. I said, "Man, this man is crazy." He was losing it.
Man, a young lady told me that. I said, "Man, I never heard anything like that before."
But he was.
But then when he got in jail, then I thought maybe it was true.
No, it was true. It was true. He was blowing his top, man. It got to the point when we were doing a record with Tina Turner, and he would take him a whole week to do one song. You know, he got to the point where he looked like he was afraid to finish. He was losing it then because he wanted to do another take. And he didn't care about the money, you know. Sure, we made a lot of money for one song, working a whole week on one song. So it was true. He was going bad at man. But he somehow he sounded like he liked me. I don't know whether he did or not. He'd get me Christmas presents and everything like that. But I don't know why that was. But
I get a good piano player. Piano, that's why. You know, people appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I know I know I must have put something in his sessions that he liked.
That's why he gave it the freedom to do it, because that's what made it.
Now we got to find Harold's parts in the Wall of Sound, right? Like that's
yeah, the Wall of Sound. It was
We should probably see if the audience has some questions, and we've got some mics down here. If folks have questions, if they'd come down, or Jason can roam that mic around. All right. Questions out there? Yeah.
Somebody asked, you know, how do you do that? You know, how do you make that sound? And I know both of these men, and Manny too, their ears never stop working. I've done one session with Wardell and done a number of sessions with Manny, and they're hearing everything. They're hearing everything. And somebody, you know, Clyde Jr. will say, that doesn't sound right. Wardell stop and go, you're right, and go straight to the chart and say, hang on just a second. But my question for you guys is, you know, I have talked to Berthelot about the white dance bands, Contours and whatnot. Was there any crossover among the, you know, Saturday night club dance bands between black and white at that time, or was it just totally there and there?
When are you talking about?
Mostly really early 60s. I mean, was anybody sneaking off to play with you know, somebody else's band?
Yeah, I mean, I did, you know, because even at the Dewdrop, a lot of times the white cats, that's what happened to Mac Rebenek. He was always trying to hang out with black cats because he really wanted to get into the music. And, you know, if he could come up to the Dewdrop, but I couldn't go down on Bourbon Street. It was like that. That's the way it was mostly. So there was always some kind of thing, because see, I personally believe, and I might be nuts, but I think of music as a higher form of language. It's much higher than words. Words is full of bullshit. That's what lawyers do, and everybody. But music gets to the heart of the matter, and it makes people feel things that their instincts respond to, and that's why I know in jazz, but in most things, but see, when I listen, I can hear 3 notes from Joe Henderson, and I know that's Joe Henderson. I can hear 3 notes from Coltrane, and I know that's Coltrane. I know the individual like you know a person that you know when they call you on the phone, or you just call, you know their name, because that's them, come from their heart and from their breath. And that's where music is supposed to be. It's supposed to be your identity. It's supposed to be you expressing yourself out of your own body. You make the horn speak for you, or guitar, or whatever it is. And hence, I believe that's the root of why the music that comes out of people who are nearer nature becomes so effective. You know, it speaks to people. I sound like a professor now.
Other questions? Got more, but yeah.
You can stay there. Hang on.
Thank you both for participating in this panel. I'd like to get your opinion. I'm working at the Smithsonian, working on the new National Museum of African American History and Culture, and developing the exhibition on music. So we've got to cover the whole entirety of African American music. And one of the things as I go out in the field and talk to people and listen, I really appreciated your comments about genres and blurring and how you just play music and listen to music. But I'd love to hear from musicians themselves if there are parts of the story to tell about the history of African American music, particularly in New Orleans. What would you think is most important to tell? I've heard both sides, like people just only associate with New Orleans with jazz, but then there's a whole nother history as well. But if I have a little space and something to tell about New Orleans, what would you think is important and part of that story?
I think that New Orleans in itself breeds what we do in New Orleans, because our culture in New Orleans, I believe, is much different than anyone else. Our food is prepared different. Our taste in music is different, although we play all kinds of music. But there's something about New Orleans music if you hear from outside of New Orleans, not New Orleans musicians, because musicians from New Orleans, if they would go out and play, you know they're from New Orleans. But if they play the same songs from other musicians that play it, it's going to be right, but it's not going to be New Orleans sound. So I think we just breed our own culture when it comes to music or anything else, food, music, our culture and everything is just different, I believe anyway.
I think that a lot of the people that came to this area came from different places, so we have a whole conglomeration, a whole melding of a lot of cultures from different parts of the world. Originally, it was just people from Britain and England and wherever they came from, and they, I hate to put it that way, but they took this land from the people who were already here. They took their land, and then they went over to Africa and got some people to work for them. So you had 3 cultures right there. Then you had French people coming over here, and then Spanish people coming over here, and so Irish people and German people, all of them came here, and all of them put their little 2 cents in. But the strongest thing that was that remained here was the African people, because they were slaves and they had to use music as a salve or as something to relieve the pressure of being a servant for nothing, or just to eat. So that their music came out stronger than all the other music that were for culture. And there was culture here. They had opera here before they had it in New York. You know, they had all the various cultures had put their thing in. It just happened that the fundamentals, I don't know what you learned about it, but they always taught me that the fundamentals of music was three things: was rhythm, melody, and harmony. The fundamental thing is rhythm. Rhythm is the fundamental thing. You like music because the rhythm, because like this kind of music, you like because the rhythm is the fundamental thing. The melody and the harmony is sort of, you know, optional, but it's got to have the beat.
Thank you.
Can I just say something that Harold and Wardell, you know, one of the points they made was that all the musicians in New Orleans, they play everything. And one of the things that's true, that goes to the heart of this also, is that you have to, New Orleans music is like a continuum. The other thing is that all the musicians, there's large extended families of musicians, so in the same family you could have someone who's a Mardi Gras Indian, a brass band player, you have someone who's a jazz musician, and you can have someone who's a rapper. So it's multi-generational, so it's, well, the rhythm is there intact, and the concept of rhythm is continuously there. It's just evolving in terms of musical styles. And the interdependence of the various styles goes to the heart of it. I mean, basically the parade beat, that syncopated beat, will tie everything together, but a lot of people forget that the same people that were jazz musicians were the guys in the studio, Cosmo Watasa studio, playing on all the R&B sessions. So it really crossed over in terms of the style. So it's better to look at it as kind of a continuum evolving than actually a set periods.
Y'all mentioned the influences that developed your music. What about the business side that y'all have been successful at? What were those influences?
I can answer that quick. There was none as far as I was concerned. It was none, because that's where we lacked at. When I say we, let me put it this way, that's where I lacked it from. Because I didn't know the business, and I was so wrapped up into music that if I hear something, I want to hurry up and go in the studio. I want to hurry up and play it with my band so I can get the feeling of what I wrote. And daggone who's making the money and all that kind of jazz, until I found out that when I had all my children, that they were starving like me. So I have to start learning how to do that, you know. And we never did have the opportunity, I'm saying we again, I'm saying me, I never had the opportunity to sit down with anyone and say, man, this is what you have to learn. Well, they'll put the pencil down and learn the business end of the music. And that's the part that I lacked in, is the business end of it. Because you sing a song like been saying I'm a producer. But first of all, I'm a producer, but first of all, I was an arranger. If you sing the song to me, you want me to audition the song for me, the first thing come in my mind when I hear your song, then I'm already writing. Instead of saying that the song, what about the lyrics? And that's what sells the song, is the lyrics. It got to be a good story to sell, but when I came up, man, it was just a rhythmic thing in my mind, what the beat would be and how the arrangement would be, and to worry about the rest later. But I never had anyone that knew what to do. They say, well, this what you have to learn the business end up. I never had that told to me. And it was lacking, the business end of the business.
There's a book right now, I don't know if you hip to it, Wardell, called Record Makers and Record Breakers. Huh? Somebody here?
Unproven yet?
Yeah, well, he's a friend of mine, too. I met him in England. And I said, if I had seen a book like that, I never would have tried to even start a record label. I mean, I realized that I didn't have the right, the same thing you said, man. I never had my mind on the value that of the stuff that I was doing. I didn't realize the money that other people were making.
That's right.
And I wasn't making nothing until, just like you said, I had a wife and 4 children. You had more children than that, didn't you?
I think so.
But all I was concerned with was trying to feed my family.
The music, yeah.
And I'll tell you a secret, it ain't no secret, but when I was doing that television show with Sonny and Cher, I was making $1,500 a week. I thought that was a lot of money. But in the same time, every week, they were making $100,000. Every week, they was making $100,000 for a show, and I was making $1,500 for writing all that music. So I didn't know no better. I just didn't know what I was worth. I never had a manager or nothing like that. I just was a cat trying to feed his family. So I know the history of not knowing the business.
Wow.
And that was just recently that everybody started talking about it. That's what I think I was hinting to when I started a record label way back then. With the motive I had, the motive was not that I was going to make a hit record or nothing like that, but I was trying to set an example for the people that were making the music to learn that you can own this yourself. You should own it. And a few years later, young cats start doing that. Man, them rappers think they got the right idea. And they did the same thing. You got the John Rovin book. You know that that's the first cats that started stealing our music was them cats who was immigrants who came over here, and when they came here, they had to live near the black community, near the ghetto, in all them little towns, wherever they came. And they saw the impact of what was happening in the black community. So they're making something out of here that can make. So they went down to Mississippi and started getting all those blues singers, Smokey Hawk and all them out the Delta, and getting all those cats like that, and bring them in the studio and make records and sell them. That's what started the independent record labels. All those independent cats, they were just hustlers who knew how to make money. They were nice people, and they knew the business. And that's what they really knew. So you can see I'm still mad. Okay.
Yeah, I think we have one over here. Yeah.
Hip hop artists and DJs sampling tracks that you've worked on.
Huh?
How do you feel about hip hop artists sampling from tracks that you've worked on?
Well, at this day and age, it's past me. I'm too old for that now. But the way I see it in my mind is that it's just like all the other businesses in this culture, where we've got technology, where everybody's doing, stuff like that. You can download stuff and you can buy. You don't have to buy a whole album. You can just upload one song. The economy has seemingly just destroyed all of the what do you call that? The integrity of people. What's it gonna sell? I read a book many years ago called "But Will It Sell?" And the main theme of that book was that it was transferring from what's quality, anything, houses, machines, anything. It was, will it sell? If it'll sell, we'll take it. And go sell it to some idiots out there who can watch television, tell them what to buy. Oh, this is great. But they did. You ever look? Any one of y'all? No, I go too far, maybe. Now it's medicine. They'll advertise a medicine and tell you 2 things that it'll do for you, but tell you 15 things that might kill you. On the television, tell you that. But you're gonna buy it. They know you're gonna buy it. They know they're gonna tell you. Anyway.
Wardell, I think you pretty much could probably comment on your ability to get paid from sampling. You want to talk a little bit about that?
No, I don't, because I don't know how they do it. No, seriously, I just don't know I just don't know. This sample stuff, man. Half of the things that they sample, you don't know they sample until someone say, "Oh, we heard this on this record in England or Africa or wherever it is," and then all of a sudden you're gonna start saying, "Let me get a lawyer," and oh man.
You start that.
You don't know. The record business have changed so much. It's not like going to a radio station to play records anymore. Play your record and you sell it at the music shops and things like that. Those days, right now, is gone. If it ever be brought back, I don't know.
No, it's too late.
Yeah, too bad. But then you find out the rappers and everybody like that is making $150 million a year, and you want to know how to sell one of your songs. One record, not one song. So you just do the best you can if you want to be in the business. But like Harold said before, if we'd have known then, he wouldn't have no AF4. And if it wasn't for AF4, I wouldn't have had Loyola records either.
Getting the high sign from Beverly. I just want to remind everybody, Unfinished Blues is coming out in June. And also to let everybody know, you probably saw these cards coming around, although Manny Fresh couldn't be here today, opening on April 22nd, Where They At exhibit on New Orleans Bounce at the Ogden Museum of Southern Art. Looks like it's going to be a fantastic exhibit that Allison is working on. We're sorry he couldn't be here today, but Wardell, Harold, Ira, can't thank you enough for taking some time out today to talk to us. Thanks for all your work. It lives and breathes with all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah.